I started to lose interest in mechanical engineering. And this happened because after my second year of PhD, I went to a career fair, and there I saw that almost all of the jobs required some amount of machine learning knowledge, some amount of artificial intelligence knowledge. This was around 6 to 7 years back. And I did not have any of machine learning or AI knowledge. I was completely a beginner in this field 6 to 7 years back. And at that time, I felt that what am I doing in this field? Because all the jobs are going in the direction of machine learning and AI. And that's when I suddenly realized that I really needed to switch to machine learning and artificial intelligence. This was also the time when I actually thought of quitting MIT and coming back to India. So I was actually looking for tickets from Boston to Pune at one point because I really had reached a very low point in my PhD and I had completely lost interest in mechanical. And I could see everyone around me knew about machine learning and AI, and I just had no way of getting into this field. Another insecurity which I had was that I was not in the CS department. So I had this notion that only people from CS can transition to ML, which now I realize is completely wrong. So what happened in the next 3 years of my PhD was something which is amazing even to me right now, because I managed to find a research group in machine learning. Not just that, at the end of 3 years, I published machine learning papers which today have more than 400 citations. I defended my PhD thesis in machine learning at MIT, and all of this happened within a period of 3 years. Here you will see some of the papers which I published. The on the left hand side, this was a paper published in a journal called Cell Patterns, and on the right hand side, you will see a paper published in Health Data Science. Here, this work which we did was with the US government itself. And so the PhD eventually turned out to be a big success for me. But the reason all of you are probably attending today's webinar is all of you really want to know that how can you also switch to machine learning like I did? How did I switch from mechanical engineering to machine learning? And how did I make such a big impact within a period of 3 years? And the rest of the webinar is structured so that all of you will be able to understand how I achieved this during my PhD itself. One more thing I'd like to mention is that Rajat or Shridat, if one of you can also record this webinar, because I've got some 5 minute timeline on my screen. So,
Yes, I'm recording it.
okay. And second thing I want to mention is that, and this can be a very important takeaway after today's webinar, is machine learning is not meant only for CA students. I had no background in formal CS. I had not taken courses in data structures or algorithms. In fact, I had not taken any CS course in my undergraduate. I had only taken mechanical engineering courses. So let's see how many of you have filled this form. I can see that there are 29 responses over here. And let's check out the field of study here. So we can see that there are many mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, CS engineers, biological, robotics, electronics, optics, photonics, biomedical, material sciences. I want to mention that whichever field you belong to, now I know this for a fact that all of you can transition to machine learning, and that not just transition to machine learning, you can publish papers in ML and you can also get jobs at top ML positions in companies. And how do I know this? Because after my PhD, companies like Meta, Amazon, and Julia Computing reached out to me with job offers. I did not reach out to these companies, but they reached out to me. And although I had a background as a mechanical engineer, the reason they reached out to me was because how I built my profile in machine learning during those 3 years. So the first myth which I want to break is that all of you in this call right now can transition to machine learning in a very strong manner. And the ML knowledge of the participants seems to be mixed between complete beginners and basic, whereas there are few participants who are intermediate to advanced level also. So that's fine. This gives me a fair amount of idea as to the background of the participants in this call, and I'll try to tailor the webinar so that it's relevant to all of you. So the aim of today's webinar is I'm going to provide to you a roadmap for all whichever field you belong to. And this roadmap is not a traditional roadmap. It's based on my life story itself. And this roadmap will teach you, first of all, to get to a level where you know the machine learning basics. And then I will also aim to equip you with the tools you need to publish machine learning papers like I did, and so that to make your profile good enough for job transitions to companies such as what I'm showing here on the screen right now. So this advice you might not have heard before. It might be new for some of you. For some of you who have attended this webinar before, they might be knowing about this advice. But in any case, I hope you'll find a lot of value from this webinar and the roadmap which we are going to share. If you have any questions throughout this, please make sure to ask in the chat. I'll scroll back to some of my earlier slides. Okay. Now, when I returned back to India after completing my PhD in the US, I had a lot of time to reflect upon this thing, that how did I manage to transition to machine learning so impactfully? And now I realize that there are three major reasons for this, for the reason I was able to make this transition. The first reason is that the way traditional machine learning is taught is not correct for engineers. So I was lucky enough to discover this new field which is called as scientific machine learning. And I stumbled upon this field accidentally, but it completely changed my career. I'm going to explain this field to all of you and how it can add a lot of value to your ML transition. The second part which I realized is that unless someone tells you that you can make a transition to ML, it's very difficult for students to believe that they can do this. So, for example, I met a senior at MIT who met me at the time when I was actually planning to uh, come back to India, and he told me that it's totally fine for students to switch labs. Earlier, I used to think that if I'm switching labs, my PhD is a failure. But he gave me that belief that I can make this transition to machine learning, that I can find a new lab. So I hope that this webinar serves as that kind of a belief system for all of you, that all of you can definitely make this transition. That's the second point. And the third point, which is probably the most important, is that what I'm seeing students do a lot these days is that they just get code from Kaggle, they get code from GitHub projects, they modify it with ChatGPT, and they put those projects on their resume. This adds no value, no impact to your resume. Why? Because it's easy to do for other students as well. It does not distinguish your profile from others. Instead, what I did was I did not update my resume until 1.5 years after I started learning machine learning. And that was because instead of doing quick projects, I focused on research. This is another key takeaway from today's webinar, is that toy projects or just quick projects are not enough these days, because everyone is transitioning to machine learning. What you need to distinguish yourself from the rest is high quality research. So you should definitely make sure that instead of just doing projects, you should try to aim to convert them into publications. Okay, so now let's come to the first part of this realization, that why am I saying that there are problems with traditional ML courses for engineers, and the way it's taught to engineers is not correct. So I have some reasons for this. So let us all explore this site together. Can you click on this link? Can you click on this link here right now? When you click on this link, you'll be taken to this MIT's course on machine learning. This is a free course and anyone can have access to the syllabus. So if you click on the course syllabus PDF over here, you'll be taken to this page. I hope all of you are with me here right now. Can you just type yes in the chat if you have opened this page, so that I know that people are following along? Okay, so if you have opened this page, you will see that the different sections which they cover, they start with regression, they start with classification, they move to neural networks, they have unsupervised learning and reinforcement learning towards the end. Now, uh, if you look at the projects which they are doing, let's take a look at some of the projects. Automatic review analyzer, digit recognition, then here is collaborative filtering. In fact, I've made a list of these projects which are typically present in all of these courses which you find as introductory ML courses. Let me show you that list. So here are some of the projects done in traditional ML courses which everyone starts out with. Automatic review analyzer. digit recognition, then collaborative filtering, which is related to Netflix movie recommendations, then sentiment analysis using tweets or Instagram posts, etc. Do you see the problem with these projects? The problem with these projects is that they are toy projects. Are these projects useful for engineers and scientists? If I am a, let's say, if I'm a chemical engineer, or if I'm a mechanical engineer, or biological science, or ocean engineering, why would I do a review analyzer project? How is that related to my field at all? If I'm a mechanical engineer or an electrical engineer, why would I do a digit recognition project? It's not related to my main field at all, right? These are toy projects which are usually taught in introductory ML courses, and people just add them to their resume. The main issue with these projects is that whichever field you belong to, CS, elec, mech, biological, chemical, etc., these projects don't show you how to combine machine learning with domain specific knowledge. What do I mean by domain knowledge? It's the knowledge of your field which you have learned for so many years before. So if you take a look again at this form, in this webinar right now, we have 11 electrical engineers, we have 2 mechanical civil engineers. All of you must have spent a lot of time learning about your domain, right? These projects should ideally show you how to combine machine learning with your domain specific knowledge. The second main issue with these projects is that it's impossible to publish research papers with these projects because they are toy projects. Everyone does them and adds them to their profile. These are not serious projects. So the main thing which we should be doing is that without leaving your main field, you should be taught machine learning integration within your field itself. Let me show you a couple of these projects. This is the project which I did during my PhD, which later completely transformed my life. Now, I was in the computer science department at MIT, and all other CA students were learning about NLP, data analytics, and computer vision in a traditional way. I was probably the only student who used machine learning to model COVID-19 infections in all the regions of the world. So this is a project which is extremely impactful, which is novel, and which I could convert to a research publication. Secondly, if you are a chemical engineer or a biological engineer, take a look at this project, how to recover a chemical reaction equation from data alone. So now this project shows you how to merge machine learning with your field of chemical engineering or biological engineering. So this project is novel, it's unique, and it can be converted into a publication. Similarly, if you are in the domain of physics, instead of doing a toy project on sentiment analysis, what if you use machine learning to predict black hole dynamics? Wouldn't this be an impactful project which is within your field itself, plus it's unique and can be converted to a research publication? If you are in the field of economics or finance or data analytics, why don't you use ML to predict economic market forces like supply and demand? So these projects are meant for engineers, scientists, and data analysts. These are some of the projects using ML for biochemistry. And how many of you in this call are aware of Navier-Stokes equation? Can you just type yes in the chat if you're aware of Navier-Stokes equation in fluid mechanics? So it's one of the fundamental equations in fluid mechanics, which, let's say if you're sitting in a room right now, the air which is flowing all around you can be modeled using Navier-Stokes equation. Now, the thing is, what if you use machine learning to apply it to the Navier-Stokes equation? So if you are in the field of fluid mechanics, or if you like computational fluid dynamics or anything related to climate sciences, doing a project at the intersection of machine learning and this field would be extremely impactful. So the point which I'm trying to illustrate is that the main thing which is wrong with traditional ML courses is that they don't teach you how to integrate machine learning with your domain knowledge. And that's why the projects which result from traditional courses are toy projects. They cannot be converted into publications. So if you learn to do these projects, which I'm showing you right now, what that will do is that you will of course have a strong foundation in ML for sure, because all of these projects required machine learning knowledge. But the main thing which you will be able to do is that you can do independent research in your field of study and publish papers. And thirdly, you can include all of these projects on your resume. Not many people will have these projects. So that will really make you stand apart from other candidates. So all of you must be having question right now that how do I find these projects and How can I start doing them? I'll come to that in the latter part of the webinar. But first, to all of the people who are complete beginners, or if you have basic knowledge of ML, what I'm saying here right now is that don't stop at doing beginner level courses. So I'm not saying you should not do beginner level courses like this. What I'm saying is that don't stop at that point. That should be the first thing which you do. But after that, you should do many things to convert projects into publications. So here I have a list of resources to transition to machine learning, and I'm going to share that with all of you right now in the chat. So let me just provide this link. All of you can click on this link right now. So you will have access to all of these resources which I'm showing on the screen. Now, if you are complete beginners or if you have knowledge at a basic level, first thing which you should be doing is, of course, learn about machine learning itself. Without knowing what ML is, without knowing the fundamentals of ML, you cannot do projects. So the first thing, of course, is to learn the fundamentals very strongly. And here also you should choose a course, I would say correctly, right? So on our YouTube channel, if you go to these first three links right now, just head over to these links and you will see three playlists: machine learning teach by doing, neural network from scratch, and decision trees from scratch. So the first playlist you should start with is machine learning teach by doing. Here you can see that we are the instructors and we have curated a list of around 42 videos. All of this is completely free. And here we have taught machine learning the way it was taught to us at MIT. So you can see the number of views here are around 40,000, because people are liking the way it is taught from a foundational level. It's really taught from the fundamentals with a focus on foundations. So all the videos on our YouTube, you'll see that there is a lot of depth in the teaching. The first thing you should be doing is start with these playlists. So start with this machine learning teach by doing playlist and be meticulous, which means that show up for every single video over here. If you look at the number of views, see the number of views goes on decreasing, right? Day 5, day 6, day 7. There are only few people who stay till the end. Those are the people who show up every single day, and those are the people whose concepts remain strong. So if you start this series, don't start it unless you are going to stay till the end. Only start it if you make a commitment that I won't leave it halfway. And while you are learning, just don't watch the videos, make notes while you are learning along with it. After you complete this machine learning teach by doing, the second playlist which you should be doing is building neural network from scratch. This is also a playlist related to deep learning. It's a bit more advanced. So here also you'll see that there are around 31, 33 lectures. And even if you start learning this playlist, you should make a commitment that I will stay with this playlist till the end. You should definitely not leave it halfway. So even I cover some projects in these playlists, but what I'm trying to illustrate to all of you is that doing this level of learning will only take you to a certain stage, which other students might also be doing. Now, in the later part of this webinar, I will tell you what you should do to do these type of unique projects and to take your profile to the next level. So up till now, hopefully I have motivated the field of scientific machine learning. All of these projects which you saw over here, all of these projects come under the umbrella of a new field of ML, which has become very popular in only the last 4 or 5 years. And that field of machine learning is called scientific machine learning. And scientific machine learning is basically uh, applicable to all of these fields which I've shown over here: mechanical, electrical, chemical, biological, physics, civil, CS, finance, mathematics, all of these fields. If you belong to all of these fields, you can use scientific machine learning from today to start doing impactful projects. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give all of you a brief overview to scientific machine learning. And the reason I'm doing this is because many people are asking in the chat, how do they choose such type of impactful projects for their domain, for their profile? And what I want to do through this webinar is that I don't want to just give you a list of resources. My main aim is that after this webinar, you can go home and you can think about how can I choose my project or how can I start doing my project. So I want to equip you with tools necessary for you to come up with ML projects in your domain. So for that, it's very important that all of you understand what exactly is the field of scientific ML. So let me try to explain this to you quickly. I did 3 years of PhD in this field, but I'll try to condense this in around 10 to 15 minutes so that you can go home and at least start thinking about that. Oh, wow, this is possible for me to do. I did not know about this before. So it's very simple. Scientific machine learning is the branch of ML which combines machine learning techniques with domain knowledge. And we already saw what domain knowledge is, but we are going to look at it a bit deeper now. So if you look at traditional machine learning, it's like a black box, right? It's not interpretable. If you use a convolutional neural network to diagnose brain tumor, and if the doctor asks you, okay, this result is fine, but why is it working the way it is? You cannot explain it because traditional ML is like a black box. It is not interpretable. Scientific machine learning is like shining a torch on that black box. Now, since we combine science with machine learning, we add a layer of interpretability, which means that now that we add science, we can start asking questions to this black box, and we can start understanding why things are working the way they are working. So scientific machine learning is great for engineers like all of us in this webinar because we can ask the question, why is it working? Why is this black box working? So what's done in scientific ML is that we combine neural networks, that's the ML part, with the interpretability of scientific structures. Now you must be thinking, what are scientific structures, right? We'll come to that in a minute. But right now, just remember that scientific machine learning is a mixture of two things, neural networks and scientific structures. So what are scientific structures? Scientific structures are ordinary differential equations and partial differential equations. So this is the main crux of the matter here. Anything which has an ordinary differential equation or a partial differential equation can be thought of as a scientific machine learning problem. And I'm going to explain this now to you. But before I do that, can people type in the chat if you know what ordinary differential equation or PDEs are? Can you just type yes if you have heard of these terms before? If you know what ODEs and PDEs are. So I can see that almost everyone has replied with a yes. You might have learned it somewhere before. You might not exactly recollect it, but maybe you know it quite well, or you know it at a basic level. That's fine. But to all of the fields, right? To all of the fields of science, to there is a ordinary differential equation or a partial differential equation at the heart of it. So let me quickly explain what ODEs and PDEs are. An ODE basically looks something like this. It's a rate of change. Let's say you have invested in a stock and you want to see how much the stock price will change. You will need to quantify the rate of change of the stock price with time, right? That's an ODE. The simplest ODE is the Newton's law, which is force equal to mass times acceleration. And acceleration is represented as d square x by dt square. So an ordinary differential equation is when something is described as a rate of change. And one more thing is that in an ordinary differential equation, there is only one independent variable. Usually that is time. So if you are in biology, you must be knowing this population growth equation, right? D population by dt is some equation. So this is an ordinary differential equation because it describes the rate of growth of population. A partial differential equation, on the other hand, is a slightly more complicated because there are more than one independent variables. So here, if you see, how many of you know this operator? Can someone type it in the chat if you know what this operator is called? This this one which I'm highlighting on the screen right now. Uh, right. So it's actually the Laplacian operator. Just this inverted triangle would be the del operator, but del square is the Laplacian operator. So this is the heat equation, which basically says that du by dt is alpha times d square u by dx square plus d square u by dy square plus d square u by dz square. This is a partial differential equation. You remember I told about the Navier-Stokes equation at the start of this webinar? It looks something like this. It's a bit scary, but it's still a partial differential equation because it's the rate of change of velocity with time and with space, right? So I hope all of you have some idea of what are ordinary differential equations and what are partial differential equations now. And the first ingredient of scientific machine learning is identification of these ODEs and PDEs. So let's say if you are in the field of, let's take a simple example. If you are in the field of mechanical engineering, right? And so if you just type beam dynamics ODE, so beam dynamics is actually governed by an ordinary differential equation. This is an ordinary differential equation. See, if you find this, that's the start of a scientific machine learning problem, and I'll show you how. Even if you are in electrical circuit, so let me write electrical circuit. Let's look at some ODE in electrical circuit. So if you find a partial differential equation somewhere, in some fields, it might be a bit difficult to find it, but usually in all the fields, there is an ordinary differential equation which governs something. If you are in the field of epidemiology, for example, you will know that this is the ordinary differential equation in the field of epidemiology. These set of equations, see, this was the equation which I started out, by the way, in my PhD. Now you all must be thinking, okay, this is fine, but how do I combine machine learning with it? And I'm going to show that to you right now. So the first ingredient of a scientific machine learning problem is ODE and PDE. So what I want all of you to do in the chat right now is whichever field you belong to, think of one ordinary differential equation in your mind right now, or Google about it, or ask ChatGPT. If you are in the field of electrical engineering, ask ChatGPT about some ordinary differential equation. So everyone in this call right now should be thinking about one ODE in their mind. If you have thought about this ODE, can you just type yes in the chat if you have thought about some ODE or some PDE in your field, whatever it might be. Okay. If you have thought about it, the rest of the webinar will be very, very relevant for all of you because you will probably have a research project direction at the end of the webinar. If you have not thought about this, ask ChatGPT and it will give you some ODE for your field. All right. So the second ingredient of scientific machine learning is neural networks. And the reason this is an ingredient is because neural networks are universal function approximators. A neural network can literally approximate any function out there. So take a look at this function. It's quite complex, right? Maybe it's a function of three variables, and who knows what this function is. Maybe it's x square plus y square plus z raised to 3, etc. For neural networks, it doesn't matter. A deep enough neural network can literally approximate any complicated function out there. So if any of you, if people in this call are not familiar with neural network schematic, actually, let me show you the schematic. So neural network schematic, it looks something like this, where we have input layers, hidden layers, and output layers. So such kind of a function, neural network can literally approximate any complicated function. So this is the second ingredient of scientific machine learning. If you combine these two ingredients, you have a scientific machine learning problem. Just be with me until this point. If you combine ODEs or PDEs with neural networks, you have a scientific machine learning problem. And let's see this in action right now. So I told all of you to think about an ODE, right? I'll tell you which ODE I am going to show you in this webinar. So take a look at this video over here. This is the video which shows predator-prey dynamics. So if you keep a bunch of foxes and rabbits in a forest, this video shows how foxes and rabbit population changes. So someone might think that if foxes and rabbits are in one forest, the uh, foxes will just eat all the rabbits. So what's so special about this? But that's not true, because if foxes eat all the rabbits, foxes won't have anything to eat anymore. So then their population will also decrease. So actually, when you keep a bunch of foxes and rabbits together, the way their population evolves is something like this. It evolves in oscillations. So this is called as the cyclic dance of rabbits and wolves. So here you can see this, the blue curve is how the foxes population evolves in, or this is the prey. So blue is the rabbit population evolution with time, and the orange is the foxes population evolution in time, right? And this evolution is represented by this set of ordinary differential equations. So I have thought of these ODEs. dx by dt is the rate of change of rabbit population. It of course depends on the population of rabbits, but this is the interaction term it depends on, right? How rabbits and wolves are interacting. Similarly, the rate of change of wolves depends on the wolf population, and it also depends on the interaction term between rabbits and wolves. This is the ordinary differential equation which I have thought of. Now let me show you how to construct a scientific machine learning problem out of it. This is the underlying ordinary differential equation. Okay, now let's say you have collected data of rabbits and wolves in this forest, and you have seen that the data evolves as something like what I'm showing on the screen right now. So you have collected this data and you have seen the oscillations in the population of rabbits and wolves. And you show it to the advisor, and your professor tells you that this is fine, but what are the underlying equations? So the catch here is that you don't know the underlying equations. More specifically, you don't know the interaction term. So what I'm telling you here is that you have the underlying data of rabbits and wolves, but you don't have this full equation with you. Let's say this equation was never derived. Let's say you only have missing physics. What missing physics means is that let's say you only have part of this equation with you. You only know that the rate of change of rabbits depends on rabbits, but you don't know the interaction term. Similarly, you know the rate of change of wolves depends on the wolf population, but you don't know the interaction term. So this, what I'm showing on the screen right now, is called as an incomplete ordinary differential equation. And this shows up in many fields where the physics is not yet discovered by people. This is called as missing physics. Now, let's say I don't know the interaction term. My task is that I want to discover this interaction term based on the data alone, which means that I don't know that this interaction term is a product of X into Y. It can be anything. My task is that I have the data of rabbits and wolves, which varies like this. And using this data and using this missing physics, I have to discover what this interaction term represents. So what will we do? We will replace this term with a neural network. Why do we do this? Because remember, neural networks can approximate any function. I showed you this slide over here. See this? The reason we replace the missing physics with neural networks is because neural networks can literally approximate any function out there. So why can't we just replace it with neural network? And then what we do is that we train the neural network based on the underlying data. So we had underlying data, we have this neural network. We'll train the neural network based on the underlying data, and that is how we'll recover the interaction terms. This is scientific machine learning problem. Now think about the ordinary differential equation which you had in mind and take away some parts of that ODE. Let's say you did not know those parts. What if you could replace those parts with a neural network and you could discover those parts based on the underlying data alone? This shows up in many fields. Let's say you are in the field of material science and you are discovering a new material, but you only know missing physics. You only know some parts of the underlying laws. You can use scientific machine learnings to find out the parts which you don't know using the data. And this is where neural networks come into the picture, and that's how neural networks help us. This is the true magic of scientific machine learning. You can truly combine ordinary differential equations or partial differential equations with neural networks, and then you can discover something which did not exist before. You can discover missing physics which no one has discovered before. That's why I keep on saying that this field is a new field and it's domain specific. Now, the reason it's domain specific is that in each of these domains, there will be different and new differential equations. So the differential equation for electrical will be different than the differential equation for physics. Physics people might model black hole dynamics. So if you are modeling black hole dynamics, just search black hole dynamics ODE and some ordinary differential equations will show up, and then try to replace parts of it with neural networks and try to discover missing physics. Then you can publish papers. Physics informed neural networks, as someone has asked in the chat, is part of this same framework. All right. So I hope until this point, I've motivated that scientific machine learning is a new field and you can do some very interesting projects in this field, whichever field you belong to. And these projects will be new, unique, you can publish them. And that will help you in so many different ways. That will help you improve your profile for grad school applications, These publications will help you stand out in your resume for job applications. Publications are so important, and scientific machine learning can help you do that. If you go to this list of machine learning resources, you will see some papers in the field of scientific machine learning which I have uploaded. So after this call, I really encourage all of you to go through these papers. I've opened these papers over here right now. This is a paper in the field of civil engineering. This is scientific machine learning in combustion. This is scientific machine learning for electric aircrafts. This is scientific machine learning for epidemiology. This was my paper during my PhD. Here you can see my name as one of the authors. And you'll see here the ordinary differential equation I started out with this. And this is where I added a neural network in this ordinary differential equation. We only had limited time in this webinar, so I could not cover everything in detail, but I have given all of the resources here. So if anyone is really inspired and motivated after this webinar, you can you can start going through these research papers, and I'm sure you will understand a lot more after you have attended today's webinar. All right, so this sheet will definitely be helpful to you even later also. We do not share this resources sheet with anyone unless they attend our webinar. Now, what I'm going to do is that here you will see scientific ML for earthquake safe buildings, longer lasting battery materials, combustion models, propulsion devices, etc. And here is my paper also. So I'm going to share this one link right now in the chat so that all of you can access this link. There are a number of personal messages which also I'm receiving regarding the courses, the machine learning bootcamp, the live courses which we have. And now let's come to the last part of our webinar, which is related to the live courses and the live bootcamps which we have at Vizuara. And so for that, I'll just stop sharing my screen so that Dr. Rajat can explain about that part. Yeah. So one thing we have understood after interacting with a lot of students in the last year is that uh, there are several of you who want to transition to AI ML, and the objectives are very different for everyone. But the most common categories are students who want to get placements in the field of AI ML, students who want to do research, students who want to publish in the field, and students who want to just get in-depth knowledge in the field of AI. And this is precisely why we started our YouTube channel in the first place. So if you head over to our YouTube channel, you'll see that the way we teach is very different. We focus a lot on in-depth knowledge, in-depth training, and the intuition behind the concept is something that we give a lot of attention to. However, a lot of students have recently requested us in the last one or a couple of months that why don't you teach something live? The reason is that live teaching has a very different sort of an effect compared to watching a video lecture. There are many students who don't have the commitment to just sit down and watch videos. And also, if you are sitting for placements, it will really help if there is any certification which is provided from your company. So, taking all these requests into account, we'll be starting our live courses from next January, that is January of 2025. And we have a number of different categories that we have introduced. So I'll just share my screen to help all of you understand the different type of courses that we are offering. So firstly, we could have offered these courses on our own, but we wanted to give this whole venture a lot of legitimacy. So we partnered with a very creditable institute, which is Sardar Patel Institute of Technology. It is one of the leading engineering institutes in Mumbai and in Maharashtra as well. So we'll be offering these degrees and these certificates as a collaboration with this institute. So in the first year, when these courses will be offered, that is starting from January, the three of us will be the main lecturers for all of the courses that we'll be offering. The first thing that we'll offer is the minor program. So the minor is structured as a series of 4 programs, which we have designed. It starts with firstly the foundations in AI ML, which means this is the course where we'll be touching upon every single mathematical concept that you will need later in your journey towards mastering artificial intelligence. And we'll also be teaching you the basics of Python as a part of this course. There might be a lot of you who are a little bit not very confident about linear algebra, probability, calculus, statistics. But these four fields, they form the crux of the entire thing that lays ahead. So unless you master these concepts, you'll really be always having some doubt in your mind that, okay, I don't really understand this to the 100%. So that is why this first course is designed for all of you, so that all of us really understand what is the importance of mathematics in the field of AI and ML. Later in the second course, we'll be touching upon ML and DL mastery. This is where we'll be teaching you how to code neural networks from scratch. So our approach here is going to be focusing on designing every single thing from scratch. Assume that we are ported back in time 40, 50 years where we don't know anything and we are trying to develop a neural network from scratch. So we'll be taking you along the journey. We'll be developing each and everything by ourselves in Python, so that you won't be feeded any code from Kaggle or something that is directly ready made. But this is how you develop confidence in the field. Once you understand how to assemble things, it's very similar to how you assemble any robotics project. If you join things together, you get the confidence that, okay, I've really understood this subject. The third course is natural language processing and CV mastery. Here we'll be taking some real life projects. We'll not be focusing on the typical toy projects that we talked about at the start of this webinar, but very interesting and real life projects that we have obtained by closely collaborating with multiple industries around the world. And so that you will get a chance to see what all problems people are solving and how we can leverage the knowledge we have learned to actually solve these problems. And finally, we'll touch upon LLM theory and deployment. So this falls within the field of generative AI. We'll be covering how ChatGPT works, how we can build a large language model on our own. The objective of this minor program, which is designed as a set of four courses, is that it will take you from the basics of AI to a level where you have completely master artificial intelligence and you develop enough confidence that even if you want to sit for placements, you can do that. If you want to, let's say, work on an independent research problem, you can do that. If you want to apply for any AI ML job, you can do that because you will get a certificate, you will get a minor certificate. Now, there are two ways of completing the minor program. Either you can take one single course per semester, which will take you 2 years to complete, but you can also take two courses per semester so that you can graduate with a minor in 1 year, starting from January 25 to January 26. And every single course is designed to be 3 credits, which means 3 hours every week will be devoted to every course. So this is about the minor, but we also wanted to develop a very specialized program for generative AI and large language models. If this is a new word to all of you, don't worry. This is a field which is getting a lot of traction these days because every single company in the world is trying to build an LLM on top of their existing workflow. And that's the reason they are hiring a lot of engineers who understand large language models like ChatGPT and how they really work. So generative AI and LLM is a field where there is a huge amount of scope, and we have divided this into four different courses. The first is Gen AI Fundamentals, where we'll be teaching you how this field has evolved and how far we have come when it comes to generating something new from scratch. Then the second course is where we'll actually break down ChatGPT. It's like ChatGPT, if it has a mask over it, we'll take the mask off and we'll understand how exactly does every single thing inside ChatGPT works. It's really very interesting once you understand how ChatGPT works, and only after this you will get confidence that, okay, this is how GPT works. Okay, so I have understood this. That means I now have the confidence to understand how large language models work. Once you have the confidence, course number 3 and 4 are devoted to building and deploying large language models on a very practical and realistic problem that we'll be taking again from the industries which we are working with. So this is a course which is very different from the minor degree which I talked about, because here the entire focus will be on generative AI and large language models. So these are the main two courses that we are starting off with, starting from next January.
students who want to start from the basics and learn everything from scratch, the minor is a program which is ideal for you. Whereas the students who want to deep dive into generative AI and then later build large language models from scratch on their own, then you can go through the program structure. You can actually uh, read through every single section and see the different things which will be covered. We'll be sharing this link in the chat as well. Apart from this, there are also individual courses that we have started, which has scientific machine learning also. So Raj talked a lot about SciML and how it's a great way to merge machine learning with your core field. And we'll be teaching exactly that starting from January. And the three of us will again be the instructors for this course as well. So if you attend this course, you will exactly understand how to work with problem statements which have some kind of differential equations, and you have a data, but the equation is not quite matching the data. So you add a neural network and you make sure that both the things match with each other well. And here you'll be learning about Julia language as well. We'll be using Julia as the main language where we'll be coding all the different things we need to develop the SciML application for our project. A lot of students who are working with us, they have reached a stage where we have published to very prestigious journals like NeurIPS also in this field, because the barrier to entry is very low. This is a niche field and not a lot of people in the world are working on it, but it's something which is very impactful. So it's really fun. There are students working in astronomy, electrical, then biology, and we are working with some very interesting problem statements. But apart from SciML, there are also individual courses you can take. Next semester, we'll be starting with 5 courses: Foundations in AI/ML and MLDL Mastery, which are the first 2 courses of the minor program. Generative AI Fundamentals and Building Your GPT from Scratch, which are the first 2 courses of the second program, and then Scientific Machine Learning. So you have an option of either subscribing to these individual bundles or taking these individual courses on your own. Again, as I mentioned before, the objective of starting with these courses was, if there is a live instructor who is teaching you, it makes a lot of difference to the understanding level and the retention level also later after you have gone through the lecture. And this will also be a very nice point to add to your resume once you have completed these courses. But yeah, so again, we'll have our main focus will be on uh, teaching every single concept in complete depth, and secondly, making sure you understand the intuition behind the concept. So even if you forget the formula or anything, you understand how this works because you have already mastered the mathematics in one of the initial courses. Okay, so this is all I wanted to talk about in the last section. Many students had messaged in the chat that they want to learn AI from scratch, so I thought this section will be extremely relevant for all of you. So you can head over to the link which we have shared in the chat, and if you have any questions or any doubts about this, you can always email us, and we'll be happy to answer all your questions. Okay, so now I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll have some time for question and answers.
I can see some questions about how different is this minor going to be with respect to our Vizuara YouTube playlist. So as I mentioned in the chat also, there are six main differences. First is that the content in the live minor and all the live courses has much more hands-on practical projects and much more comprehensive content. Second is there are assignments which will be evaluated. And once you complete all the assignments, you will get a certificate upon completion. Uh, you will be doing a capstone project almost at the end of every course, which can be converted into a research publication. And you'll get an access to a community of learners you can start projects with. But the most important thing which we have realized is that live learning is 10 times better than passive learning. Because as you saw in the playlists which I showed you, people attend the first 3, 4 lectures, but then they stop attending one if it's passive. But in a live cohort, it's very different because an instructor can hold you accountable. You also are in a community of people. So you feel more like attending. It's like attending university lectures or college lectures. So that's where live teaching makes a huge difference. Please ask questions in the chat. We won't be taking questions through voice because of the size of this call. Then there is a question that if I'm doing a job, will I be having access to the videos? Yes. So uh, if you're doing a job and you enroll, if you miss some lectures, we'll be providing recordings of those lectures, and then you will have lifetime access uh, for those recordings, and you can watch those recordings later also. Courses, are the courses free? No, they are definitely not free. So you can check out the link which we have shared above. Once more, I'll let me share it here where the prices will also be mentioned. Yeah, I shared it again in the chat. So if all of you, if you're in a full-time job and cannot attend the on-campus immersion, that's fine. So this will be online teaching anyways. You can still apply for AI foundational courses because we'll be conducting the lectures at a time which is usually evenings. So it will be comfortable for you. And if even if some lectures are missed, you can watch them later as recorded lectures. As long as you submit the assignments on time and are proactive, the course will be useful to you even if you miss some lectures because of your job.
So there is a question that can we do minor in AI plus elective program together in 1 year? So yes, you can do that. So how you can do it is that you can take two courses from both the programs in each semester. So for example, in the next semester, you can take the first two courses from minor as well as the first two courses from the elective program. And then the semester after that, you can take the remaining two courses. So it will be a total four courses for you each semester.
Is there an option for EMI? And so no, there is no option for EMI because the ever since we started the batch, the demand for the registrations are huge. So in fact, we are thinking of closing all the registrations before 15th of December. Because every batch size will be small and we do not intend to take more students than we are capable of handling. So if any of you in this call really wants to register, you can book your seat as soon as possible. After 15 December, we will not be able to guarantee a spot just because the demand for this teaching is so high. There is no course which is taught live in India or anywhere in the world by PhDs from MIT and Purdue. So people from USA, Europe, all over the world are going to be attending. So it's as if you are learning from the best universities in the world. So that's the kind of opportunity. So it's probably a thing which has never happened before in AI ML teaching. So I hope all of you are aware of this and you understand uh, how much value this course can add to your profile.
So someone has asked if they can do an internship in our lab. So what we are looking for is that let's say you showcase some proficiency and a lot of proactiveness to work hard, and you are able to grasp all of the concepts in a proper way. Then we do hire interns. So what we are currently doing is that if you for all the students who are registered on our courses, we'll be monitoring all of the students very closely, and we'll be selecting a few bunch of students whom we think are extremely proactive. They are solving assignments on time, they are doing projects, and these students then will be opening up some doors for them, whether it is internships in our company or pursuing remote work with some professors in some labs in the world. So yeah, there is opportunity, but for that you have to showcase certain skill sets which we are looking for.
Maybe we can take one last question because we are almost out of time. Uh,
So Madhu has asked if the bundle shows 2 years, then how we can complete in 1 year. So how you can complete in 1 year is by taking two courses per semester instead of taking one course per semester. Since anyways we'll be teaching these courses parallelly, they will not be intersecting with each other anytime. So you can easily take two courses every semester and you can complete the entire degree courses in 1 year. So it is up to the student actually.
Our last question I'll answer is how to get internship in ML domain. Is there any prerequisite? So in our experience, we also hire interns for ML, and the main prerequisite we look for is you need to have taken some kind of foundational courses in ML and AI so that your foundational knowledge should be very strong. Many people who may ask questions in the internship, they have just used Chat GPT before, and that is very clear to the interviewer. If I ask a question about overfitting, or if I ask a question about a concept which needs you to know machine learning, you will not be able to answer it unless the foundations are strong. So if you want to get an internship in ML domain, I would highly recommend to first make sure foundations are strong, have hands-on projects, and if you can take a project to a publication level, if you work with your friends, that would really build up your profile for the internship application. This will take some time. If you do it quickly, this will not happen unless you have already worked in ML before. Um, Okay, so I guess we are at the end of the time, so we can wind up the webinar. But thanks a lot, everyone, for attending. And I hope we have provided you with enough information to kickstart your journey in machine learning. Just remember that you should have the belief within you that you can transition to ML, and it will not happen quickly. That is our main philosophy. It will take time. You need to work hard. You need to plan for at least 8 months to 1 year for a very strong transition. And if you have any doubts, please email us at hello@vizuara.com. And as I mentioned, the deadline for the live courses and bootcamp will be over in 1 week. So please reserve your seat before that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you everyone. Thanks a lot.
See you in the next
Bye.
webinar.
Bye everyone. All the best.